I can select to see if the Cameo is for me or for a friend. I can then add in the value of my friend's name. Let's say it's John Smith. And then I can save that value. Now this will then send us over to our request Cameo option. Hello, my name is Lachlan Kirkwood, and today I'll be teaching you how to build a Cameo clone entirely out of no-code using Bubble. Bubble's by far one of my favorite no-code tools, as it gives you the complete control to create your own custom database, your own front-end user interface, and also the ability to integrate and connect with third-party plugins and APIs. For those of you who don't know me, I've spent the past year working with the Bubble team to create their how-to blog series. This series took a list of the top products out there on the market like Airbnb, Uber, and Instagram, and explained the step-by-step instructions to rebuilding these products using Bubble's no-code platform. Throughout this tutorial, I'll be explaining the exact process for you to follow in order to create your own version of Cameo. This will include features like registering user accounts, updating the data that's displayed on accounts, creating a homepage feed where we can list a number of celebrities or featured categories, being able to request a cameo from a celebrity, creating a portal where celebrities can record cameos, and finally displaying dynamic data on user profile pages. So grab your Bubble editor and let's dive right into it. The first feature we'll be working on in our build today isn't actually a core feature at all. Instead, we'll be taking the time to configure and set up our database within Bubble. And what I love about Bubble is that it allows you complete control to customize a database in whatever way or form you would like. And you can create relational values between different data types and fields. And if this sounds a little confusing, don't stress at all. I'm going to be walking you through the step-by-step process you need and explaining everything in detail along the way. So within our database, there's 4 different data types I'm going to be creating today, and that will be a user. And I should just note that users on our platform can be both regular users, who are people who would purchase a Cameo, and also celebrities, who are those obviously recording cameos. Within that, I'm going to have all of the data fields storing the information of both types of users. Then I'm going to be storing the data type for different categories across our application. And a category on Cameo could be something like HBO or Disney. It's just a way to structure different celebrities into certain categories that people can easily search by. And then I'm going to be storing a data type, which is a Cameo itself. And then, of course, finally, I will have an option to store reviews on our platform, which will link to celebrity profiles. So let's jump over into our Bubble editor and we'll start building out our custom database. So if we head over into the data tab, you'll automatically see that the user data type has already been created within Bubble, and it already contains an email field, so you won't need to add that in. It will also contain a password field. However, Bubble just doesn't display this in plain text to any admins who are creating applications. So the first thing we'll need to do is, instead of setting up the data fields within our user type, we'll go ahead and create the different data types. And the reason we're doing that is because there will be data fields that will need to link relationally to different data types. And we won't be able to do that unless we have our data types first created. So our different data types, as I mentioned, will be users. There will be a Cameo data type, a category data type, and then a review data type. Now within these, we'll go ahead and start adding in the necessary data fields. And I'll be starting with the user data field. So I'm choosing to store a list of these in a Notion doc, and if you'd like to keep a list yourself, I'd recommend just creating something that you can keep track of. And what I love about Notion is that I can just tick it off as I go along, just so it's easy to keep an eye on where I'm at within my build. So the first thing I'll be doing is adding in some pretty simple fields here. I'll be adding in a name field, a profile photo, a description for the user, a price, and then their profile type. So we'll go ahead into our editor, select to create a new field, and the first field we'll be adding in is their name. This will just be a simple text field. I'll select to create that. Then there'll be their profile photo. I'll just call this photo, and I will select this to be an image data field, and I'll create that. The next will be the description for the profile, and this will be used by our celebrities just to give a bit of a background of who they are or where they've acted. So I'll just type in description. I will select that this field type is a text type, and then within that I will add in a pricing option, and the price will be relevant to users on our platform who are celebrities who will be charging for cameos, and this option itself will be a number. We'll select to create that, and then we'll also create an option which differentiates between the two options of being a regular user and a celebrity user, and I will be explaining how we can create this later on when we begin to register user accounts. But I'm just going to type in an option that says profile type, and we'll be selecting for this to be a text option, so we'll go ahead and add that into our database. Then finally, there's two additional data fields we'll need to add, and that is the option to select a user to be featured on our platform, and that'll be useful for, again, featuring celebrities on our homepage and choosing who we can and won't display in those categories. And then there is the list of categories that this celebrity does belong to. So we'll go into our editor again, create a new field, and I'll call this field featured. Now this field type will be a yes/no field, so it'll be that yes they are featured or no they aren't featured. So I'll create that. But what I'll also want to do is update the default setting to this to be no. So by default, any user is not featured. Later on in our build, we'll be creating an admin dashboard that allows us to change the value of this and choose which celebrities we do want to feature in our application. And then finally, we'll be adding in a list of categories that a user can belong to, and that'll be useful when a celebrity chooses which particular categories match their previous experience. So I'll select this to be categories. And this is where the relational values between different data types in Bubble come in handy. So this field type will be a category, but because there will be multiple categories on our application, we'll select that this is a field with multiple entries. So that way a user could choose, let's say they're a Disney actor, HBO actor, as I mentioned before, they're a sports star. There'll be all different categories that we'll create later on in our application, but we just need to build out the infrastructure that allows someone to choose from multiple options. So we'll go ahead and create that field. Then I'll jump back into my Notion doc here, and I'll tick off that I have created all of these fields under the user's data type. Next, we'll be working on our category data type. I'll just be adding in a title and a featured image for this category. So I'll head to our category option. I'll add in a option that says title, and this will just be a plain text option. Select to create that. And then next, we'll be adding in a featured image, and like our profile photo on our user type, this will just be an image option. So I'll create that. Once again, I'll head back over into my Notion doc then. I'll tick off that I've created the category data fields, and then I will scroll on down to the Cameo data type and add in all of the data fields for there. So the first thing I'll be doing is adding in the request message text, the occasion, and both of the video tokens, and I'll explain these as I go along. So the first data field we'll be adding is the request message, and this will be a message that a user can add to their Cameo when they request it from a celebrity. So this of course will be a text field, so we'll select to create that. Next will be the occasion for the Cameo, so this will be something that will differentiate between something like a birthday or a pep talk or someone being roasted. So this field type will be a text element for now. I'll go and create that. Then I'll go and add in my video tokens for my Cameo. Now, with the plugin we'll be using today to support and upload video, it won't be actually storing any video files on our application, which is great for speed. It will though use video tokens, so it'll be storing a video on a third-party server, and then it'll be using tokens to access and embed those videos whenever we need them. So we'll create a new field, and we'll call this a video token. So this will be the video token for our Cameo, and the token itself will just be a string of text. So we'll create that field. And then we'll need to create another video token, which will be for a request video on a Cameo. So sometimes a user will upload a video onto their request message to the celebrity, and they'll ask for particular instructions. So that'll be another video. So I'll go and create a new field that says request video token. And once again, this will be just a standard text field. I'll select to create that. And then I will tick off that I've added those fields into my database. The next will be the URL field, the user who we're recording the Cameo for, the celebrity who will be featured in this Cameo, and if it has been published or not. So let's jump into our editor again, and I'll start by creating a URL string. So by default, Bubble will store a generic URL with a string of different text, but what we're going to want to do later in our build, and again, I'll explain this in more detail once we get to it, is create custom URLs that we can pull and display data from. Now, we'll go ahead and just add in a field name called URL, and URLs are again just strings of text. So we'll go and create that. The next option will be the user for option. Now, this will be who the Cameo is for. So by default, when a Cameo is created, it will automatically store the information of whoever is purchasing that Cameo. But there will be some instances where someone is buying a Cameo for their friend. So we wouldn't want the Cameo to be for the person who's actually purchasing the video. It'll be for a user who is their friend. Now, we'll be storing this as a text field today, and we'll go ahead and create that. Then we'll go and add in a celebrity field, and this will keep track of who the featured celebrity is that is recording the Cameo or has been requested to record a Cameo. And then we'll scroll on down to our user data type here, and because we're integrating that with our user data type, we will be able to pull in all the information that sits under a user, so a celebrity's name, their price, their profile photo, etc. Now, because there's only one celebrity per Cameo, we won't be selecting that this is a field of multiple entries. Instead, it'll be a field of just a singular entry. So we'll go and create that. And finally, we'll create a new field that registers when a Cameo has been published, because there will be a period of time between when a Cameo has been created and then when a celebrity records that Cameo and sends it to the user. That is then when it would be registered as published. So we'll go ahead and create this field type to be a yes/no field. And similar to before, we will be updating the default value of this to be no. Back in my Notion doc, I'll go ahead and then tick off that I've finished adding in the data fields under the Cameo. And finally, we just need to add in the fields for a review, which is quite simple. We'll be storing the data of the celebrity who the review has been written for, the actual content of a review, and a star rating for that review. So back in my editor, I'll go to the review data type, and I'll start by adding in the content of the review. So this is the actual message of a review. This will just be a text element. I'll create that. Then I'll add in the star rating. Now this will be a numerical value, so that'll be 1 to 5 stars. I'll create that. And then finally, there will be a celebrity field, which again will be another user, because this is the celebrity who the review has been written for. So I'll go and create that. And just like that, we've finished creating our database. So it's set up to help us build out the application exactly how we need throughout our build today. But you can see how easy it is to go ahead and create your own custom database in Bubble. And if at any point later on we need to go and update this at any given time, we can definitely do that. And if for any future builds you need to add any additional features into this product, feel free to go ahead and add in any different data types or fields within your database. Once we've finished configuring our database, we can jump on into the list of features that we'll be creating throughout this tutorial today. And the first one that I want to work on is a bit of housekeeping. So we'll be taking care of a workflow that allows us to register user accounts. And within that, we'll also want to differentiate between the users who are our regular users and those who are celebrities who will be posting the cameos. So let's jump on into our Bubble editor, and I'll explain how this process can be created. Now within Bubble, there's two ways that you can register user accounts. The first option is to head up to Bubble's drop-down menu on the top left here and select from the sign up login pop-up reusable element. And what this reusable element does is it displays a pop-up across any page on your application whenever it's called, which means that it won't take the user away from the page that they're on. It'll instead just display an overlay, which allows them to register a user account. Now, this can be helpful in scenarios like if a user's scrolling through a feed and they click a like button, yet they don't have an account registered on your platform. You could prompt a pop-up to get them to quickly register an account and then send them back to the same position on the page that they were just at beforehand. What I also love about the reusable element, if you click into it, is that it comes pre-built with everything you need on it. And you can customize this reusable element entirely, so that way whenever you call it, it'll look the exact same as what it does here. So you'll see straight away that it comes pre-built with an email and password input fields here, but it also comes pre-built with all of the workflows you need to get started. So there's workflows here to log a user in if they have an existing account, sign a user up if they don't have an account. You could prompt that they've forgotten their password and send them a password reset email. But what I want to be building today is a dedicated registration page that a user lands on once they sign up for our application. So we'll go ahead and create a new page here, and I'll call this page register. Now, the first thing I'll be doing on this page is just updating the background color, and this is just a personal preference that I have of mine. I like to just update it to a light gray because that way if I'm adding any white elements to the page, I can see where the constraints of the page are. And then I'll go ahead and just reduce the size of this page roughly to be the size of a mobile screen. If you're building for any particular mobile dimensions, I'd recommend adding those in now. But for the sake of my MVP, I'm just going to things rough because I'll be focusing on the workflows that power the application. Then from here we can go ahead and start to add in some elements to our page, and the first one will be a text element at the top which just says register account. I'm not going to create a custom style again for the sake of our MVP here today, so I'll just select from one of Bubble's pre-built H2 styles here. I'll shrink the text box wrapping that, and then I'll roughly center that horizontally in the middle of the page. And then I'm going to go and duplicate this heading. I'll move this over to the side here. And then I'll call this title name. And then below this, I'm going to go ahead and select from an input field. I'll add this in below. And this will be used to register a user's name. So I'll update the name of this input field to be name. Then I can go and duplicate both of these elements. Move those down a bit. And I'll go ahead and update this one to be an email. And I'll call this input email. And when you are configuring the input of an email, you'll also need to update the content format option here to be an email because it'll be registering a special value. Then I'll go ahead and duplicate this one more time. And this, of course, will be used to register our password. So I'll update the title of that to password. And once again, I'll go to our input for our password. I'll update the name of this to be password. And then I'll update the content format once again to be a password. And then below this, I'm going to add in some more text that just says account type. And from here, we'll be adding in a drop down option. And this will be used to determine if a user is a normal user on our platform or if they're a celebrity. So when a user signs up, they can choose from either option. So we'll be choosing from a list of static choices, which is the default setting for our drop down here. I'll update the drop down name to be called account type. And then I'll add in two different drop down options that our users can select from. So the first will be I'm interested in requesting cameos. And then by selecting enter, we add in a new option into our drop down menu. And the next option will of course be I'm interested in recording cameos. And by all means, you can update this text if you would like to suit whatever options you want to add within your own custom application today. But I'm just going to be keeping it at that for now. And then below this, I'm going to finish off the page by adding in a button. I'll center this button horizontally. And in this one case, I am going to edit the style of this button just to be the same pink color code that Cameo uses. And I'll update the button to be called Register. Now we're ready to build out the workflow to actually go ahead and register this user account. So I'll click from the Start Edit Workflow option. I'll select a new action, and the action we'll be selecting from is in the account menu, and it'll be the first one here, which is to sign a user up. And you'll see from here that it'll straight away need to register a user's email and password, which we have added in the input fields onto our page. So we'll match the value of these inputs with the entry in our database. So we'll select our input emails value, and then our password will be our input passwords value. And then what you can also do at this stage is add in any other data fields within the user data type you'd like to register. In this case, we'll just need to be registering the user's name for this point in time, and this will of course be the input names value. And then finally, it'll also need to register the user's profile type. Now from here, a user has registered their account, we've registered the email, their password, their name, and the type of profile that they have. The last thing we'll need to do is just create one last action in our workflow, and this action will be redirecting a user to a page. Because once a user has registered for an account, we don't want them to stay stagnant on the same page. We'll want to redirect them to either their settings page where they can update more information on their profile, or we could go ahead and redirect them to our home page. Both options will be correct, but in the case of our application, I'll be wanting to redirect them to our home page. So I'll go ahead and first of all, I'll need to create a new page. I'll call this the home page, create that. And then on the design of the page, I'm not going to do anything just yet, except for once again, just update the color of the background, and then just roughly change the constraints of the page dimensions. And then I'll jump right back over to our registration page, head into the workflow tab, and then select the workflow that we were previously working in. So at the moment, it's just signing a user up. We'll need to create another action here, and this action will be within our navigation events, and we'll be selecting the go to page event. And of course, the destination page will be the home page that we've just created, and we won't need to send any data yet within this workflow, but we will in other instances throughout our app, and I'll be explaining that when it's necessary. But now that we've finished creating our registration page, we'll go ahead and preview what this looks like within our development environment. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new account. I'll be calling it Lachlan Kirkwood. The email I will call testemail@gmail.com. I'll add in a very secure password, and then I'll choose my account type to be that I'm interested in recording cameos. And then I'll go ahead and register my account, and you'll see that the workflow is now in action. And it has gone ahead and registered an account and sent us through to our home page, which you can see in our URL string here. We just don't have any content on this home page yet, so it's blank. But I'll jump back into my Notion doc, and I'll be able to tick off that I've created a feature to register user accounts, and also an option to differentiate between both users and celebrities on our platform. Once we've finished the process of registering user accounts across our platform, the next thing we'll want to do is go and create a settings page that allows a user to update the information displayed on their profile. Because after all, when we're registering a user account, we're only registering their name, their email, their password, and their account type. There'll be instances, particularly for celebrities across our platform, where they'll need to add in additional information, like a description of who they are, what categories they belong to, and a price for how much their cameos are. So let's jump over into our bubble editor and go ahead and create a new page. And we'll be calling this page the settings page. Once the page is created, I'm going to do the usual and update the background color to be a light gray. Reduce the constraints of the screen to be some sort of mobile dimensions. And then I'll go ahead and add a title at the top of the page. I'll call this settings. I'll update the style to be a H2. And then I will roughly center this in the middle of the screen. And from here, you'll find that the process of creating a settings page is much the same as actually creating the registration page. And what I mean by that is that it's going to list just a field of multiple inputs. So we'll go ahead and create a new title first, like we did on our registration page. I'll call this the name title. Then we'll add in an input field. And of course, this will be the user's name. Once again, remember to update the name of the input. So the naming convention will be a name. Then below this, I will copy this heading. I will call this the profile photo. And then I'm going to go over to our input elements and select a picture uploader. Just expand that title out as well so it displays properly. And then below the profile photo, I'm going to want to display the description. And with the description, instead of using a single line input field, we're going to be using a multi-line input field. And the difference with a multi-line input and a single input is that the multi-line allows you to add multiple lines of text, hence the name there. But what this really does is that when a user adds in multiple lines of text, this field will continually expand down in order to add all that text in. So if a user has quite a long profile description, it'll be able to fit all of that in. Then below our description, I'm going to once again duplicate the title. And I'll select this to be categories. So if a celebrity has previously been featured, let's say they're from The Office or they're a sports star, there'll be categories that we can register, and we'll allow our celebrities to choose which categories they fit within. So instead of using a drop-down menu or a normal input, we're going to use a special input called a multi-selector. So I'll go over to our plugins option here. We'll select to add a new plugin. We'll type in multi and then head on down until you find the multi-select drop-down menu. Now that's a free plugin from Bubble, so we'll go ahead and install that. And then back in our design tab, we can head on over to our input forms and we'll see that the multi drop-down is now an option. So we'll add that in. And with our multi-line input, we're going to need to configure the actual categories that this displays. Because in this case, you could make it a static choice of categories. However, because our categories are registered as a individual data type, we're going to need to update this to display these as a list of dynamic options. So if you head over to the choices style option here, we'll select the drop down and choose from the dynamic choices option. Next, we'll need to go ahead and define the choices that we'll want to display. So we'll do a search for, and we'll just be selecting to search for the categories data type. We won't need to add any constraints onto here, but we will need to add an option that this will display. So we'll select from the current options, which is our categories, title. Now this will allow a user to see a list of all of the categories or type in a category, and they'll be displayed a relevant option based off their text that they can easily go ahead and select. And because we're using the multi-select plugin, it'll allow a user to select multiple options at once. So while we're here, we'll go ahead and just update the name of the multi-line drop-down. So we'll say that this is a categories. Then below this, we'll go ahead and add in another title. I'll just move these up a little bit. And this title will be called Cameo Price. And for this, we'll just need to add in a regular input field. However, we will need to update the content format to be a currency because we'll be registering this in dollars. Then below our price field, we can go ahead and add in a button element, and this will be the button they select when they want to update their profile information. I'll just then go and center that horizontally, and I'll just expand out the size of our mobile page so that it's not right at the bottom. Now you'll note that the fields such as description, categories, and the price of a Cameo shouldn't actually display to regular users across our platform. We'll only want those to display to celebrities. So what we'll be able to do is create a condition element that hides these input fields from users who aren't listed as celebrities. So what we'll do is we'll go ahead first to our description input field here, create a new condition. We'll define a new condition below and register this when the current user, their profile type is, and now we'll need to add in the option from our original dropdown when we registered a user's account. So we'll head over to our register page here. We'll quickly click on the drop-down menu that I added before, and then we'll copy this exact option here that registers a user, so the option that says I'm interested in requesting cameos, and we'll go back over to our settings page, go into our description, head over into our conditions again, and then we'll be pasting this option in. So when the current user's profile type is, and then I'll just paste in that text. And the reason I'd recommend pasting that text in as opposed to just typing it is that this condition will be case sensitive. So you'll need this text to equal the exact value that we registered through our drop down menu. Now when this condition is met, we're going to define a new rule and we're going to select this element is visible. And for this option, we won't be selecting this box because if we select it, this element will become visible, whereas we don't want it to be visible on a user's profile who isn't a celebrity. Then we'll go ahead and replicate the exact condition again for the rest of the elements that belong to a celebrity. And then we'll need to go through and add the same condition to all of these elements here that we don't want to display for our regular users. So including the headings, I'll go ahead and define a new condition. And this will register when the current user, their profile type is, paste in that option. Select from the drop down that this element is visible and leave that unchecked. And then I'm just going to quickly go ahead and do that for the rest of my options here. Perfect. And I can just see that I also need to update the name of this input, so I'll call it price, just so when I go ahead and create my workflow, I'll be able to remember which input that I'm calling on here. So now once we've added those conditions, these inputs won't display to anyone who isn't a celebrity on our platform. We'll then go ahead and create an actual workflow that updates all of this information on a user's profile when this update button is clicked. So we'll select to start edit a workflow. And within this workflow, the thing we're going to want to do is head over into our data tab here, and we'll be making changes to a thing. The thing we'll want to make changes to is the current user, so the person who's on their settings page. And then we'll just go ahead and select all of the data fields within our database that we want to match with the input fields we've just added on our page. So we'll start by selecting the naming convention. So this will be the input names value. There'll be the profile photo, which is the picture uploader A's value. And you can see here I've forgotten to give a name to the picture uploader, so I'd always recommend going and adding those in properly. I can just remember in this case, but it could be worth me going back and updating the name of that to be called profile photo. I'll then go and change another field, and we'll be wanting to change the description field's value to be the multi-line input description field's value. And then I'll be adding in the categories that a user has listed, and because this is a list with multiple options, not just a single input, it won't equal a specific value. We'll instead need to add the whole list of categories that a user has selected. So we'll select to add a list, and the whole list will be all of the categories that they have just added, so the value of that. Then finally we'll be adding in the price that they'll be charging for their cameos. So this will be the price data field, and we'll be selecting from our input prices value. Perfect. Now every time that button is clicked, this workflow will run and update all of the information on a user's profile. Now after this is run, there are a couple of options of what you can do. You could either redirect a user to their profile page, which can easily be done by adding in a navigation event. Or what we could do, and what I'm going to show you how we can do, is create just a success prompt on the page just below our update button, which indicates that the profile information has been successfully updated. So I'll go ahead and add in an alert option here. I'll add this under the update button, and the alert will say updated. Then what we'll want to do is just temporarily display this alert after that button has been clicked. So we'll head back into our workflow editor, and we'll add another step onto our workflow after the data fields have been updated. And within this step, what we'll want to do is head over to our element actions options. We'll select from the alerts, and we'll choose to show message. And because we only have one alert, this will just show the updated alert we just added. And you can change the parameters for how long it will display, how long it'll hold for, and how long it'll take to fade out. But I'm just going to leave those default as they are. Then back on the page itself, there is one last thing we're going to need to do, and that is display the dynamic information stored within our database within these input fields on our settings page. And what I mean by that is that these fields shouldn't be blank if a user has already updated their profile information. So what we can do is add in what's called initial content, and what this will do is display the dynamic data we already have saved on a user. So we'll go and select to insert dynamic data, and we'll display, in this case, the current user's name. We'll go over to the profile photo option, insert a dynamic image, and display the current user's profile photo. We'll head over to the description, and then for the initial content, once again, we'll be displaying the current user's description. Then for the categories, the default value will be the current user's categories. And finally, the price will be the current user's price that they're charging per Cameo. Perfect, and that should be the settings page built. We'll go ahead and preview what this looks like in our development environment, and we'll see how all of this now ties together nicely. So you can see that automatically on my page, it's displaying the name that I already registered before within this input field, and that's because of the initial content that we opted to display across our fields. So I'll then go ahead and upload a profile photo. I'll add in a description. I'm featured on Bubble tutorials. Now we won't have any categories to display yet, and this is something I will touch base on later on in our tutorials. We'll need to in fact create an admin dashboard that allows us to create a list of categories, but because there's nothing to display right now, I'm going to leave this field blank. And then for our Cameo, I'm just going to say that I charge $9.99, and then I'll go ahead and select to update my profile information. The success message will display temporarily. And then I'm just going to go ahead and refresh this page, and you'll soon see that all of the dynamic data is still displaying in my input fields thanks to that initial content that I've added. And just like that, we've finished creating our settings page, which allows us to restrict access to certain fields for celebrities, display a success message, and also display initial content from existing data fields that we've already registered. Once we've finished building out the settings page, we can move on to the next feature in our build today, and that will be creating an admin dashboard where we can create categories and also toggle on and off who the featured celebrities are across our platform. Let's jump on into our Bubble editor and we can start designing this page. I'm going to go ahead and create a new page up from our drop down, and I will call this dashboard. And then on this page, of course, I'm just going to update the background color to the gray that I always use. And then I'll go ahead and just add a text element in, which I can just say that this is a dashboard. I'll update that to a H2 style. And because this is an internal page that only you as an admin will be accessing, you can design this page however you want. So in this case, we don't need to design this to be a mobile specific page. It can also be displayed as if it's viewable across the web, which is what I'll be doing today because there'll be quite a few elements that we'll be adding in that will be a lot more intuitive to use on a larger screen. So after adding in my title, I'm going to go ahead and add in an option to create a new category across our platform. So I'll add in another title here. I'll call this title Create Category, and then once again I'll update that to a H2 style. And then below this, I'm going to go and add in an input field, which will allow you to add in a name of a category. I'll just move that down and I'll add another title above this just so you can identify what the input field is. So this will be called category name. I'll also update the name of the input field to category name just so we can easily reference that when we're creating a workflow. I will go ahead and then also copy the title again, and I'll just say category photo, and then I will be adding a picture uploader element beside that, and we'll be using this to update the featured image of a category. So again, I will change the value of this to be picture uploader category photo. Then below both these input fields, I'm going to go and add in a button element. And this button will just say create category. Now, when a category is created by selecting this button, what we'll want to do is actually go and display a list of all of the categories across our platform, just so we can keep track of them, and also add a function to be able to delete them if some categories become obsolete. So I'll just go and expand this page out, and the way that I'll be displaying all of the categories is in a repeating group element. Repeating groups are by far one of my favorite elements in Bubble, as they allow you to pull and display a list of all of the options that are saved within your database. So I'll just go and add this to the page, and you'll see how this can work in action. So within a repeating group, there is a list of rows, and you can customize how many rows that you want to display, and each of these rows will represent an entry within your database. In order to display any data across this repeating group, we'll first need to update the type of content that we want to display. In this case, it'll be from our category data type. And then you'll need to add a data source to this repeating group so it knows which category to display. So what we'll do is we will perform a search within our database. So we'll select the do a search for option, and we will select the category data type. Now this repeating group will know to display a list of all of the categories that we've saved within our database. Next, we can update the layout style of the repeating group. So at the moment, it's currently displaying 4 rows. Now, if there are more than 4 options, it will allow you to scroll down and continually view those. What I'd like to do though is just display a list of 2 rows. And I'm also going to update the layout style to be extended vertical scrolling. So what that allows it to do is, instead of being able to scroll within the repeating group, it will just expand out how many rows the repeating group displays, and it'll also collapse it if there aren't more than 2 actual data fields that we want to display from our database. Next, I'll go in and start to populate the top row of our repeating group, and you'll see that it'll then display that content throughout the rest of the grid. So I'll start by going in and adding in an image element, and this will be the featured image of a category after it's been created. I'll just move that up to the top of the repeating group. And then I can go ahead and insert dynamic data that this image will need to display. So with the dynamic data, I'll be wanting to display the current cells category that it sits within, that category's featured image. Then beside this, I'm going to go in and add a text element. And the text that this will display is the current cells category's title. I can also then just go ahead and update the style of that text for the title just to another H2. And then what I'll do is just shrink the size of this repeating group so it fits quite nicely there and that there's minimal empty space. I'll also move that heading into the middle there. And now we can go ahead and build out the workflow to actually create a new category within our application. So I'll select the Create Category button, choose to start edit a workflow, and within this we'll be wanting to head to our Data tab and we'll be creating a new thing because a category doesn't yet exist. The thing we'll want to create is of course a category, and similar to the process of registering a user's account, we'll just need to map out the fields that we'll be storing within our database with the input elements on our page. So we'll start by adding in the featured image. So the featured image of this category will need to be the value of the picture uploaded that we've just added to this page. Then the next field will be the title, and this will of course be the input of the category name that we added. And just like that, a category will be created across our application. Now, whenever a category is created, it will automatically populate into our repeating group in real time. But we also might need to create an option to be able to delete a category. This can come in handy in some circumstances where a category just isn't relevant anymore. Deleting a category is quite a simple process. We'll just head over to our icon elements here. I'll add in a small icon. And then I'll update this icon to be a trash can. And then I'll go ahead and create a new workflow when this icon is clicked. And within this workflow, once again, I'll be heading to our Data tab here, and I'll just be selecting to delete a thing. And the thing we'll want to delete is the current cells category that this trash can sits within. Now that we've finished adding in an option to create categories, there's one last feature I'd like to add to our admin dashboard today, and that is the option to toggle on or select who are the featured celebrities across our platform. Because on our homepage, I'd like to display a repeating group where there's a list of featured celebrities who are currently trending across the platform. And I, as an admin, will be able to control that through our admin dashboard here. So once again, I'm going to add in a title. I'm just going to copy this title text here, move that down, and below our repeating group, I'm just going to have this title say celebrities. And then again, I'll be using another repeating group element to display a list of all the celebrities in our application. So this means that I'm going to need to update the type of content to be a user. And then within the data source, I'm going to need to perform a search for users on our platform. But of course, I'm only going to want to display users who are featured as celebrities. So what I can do is add a new constraint here, and I'll only choose to display users where their profile type is the same value as the drop-down field when a user registered an account, marking up that they were a celebrity. So say when the profile type equals, and then I'll head over to our registration page, and I'll quickly just grab the value from our drop-down menu. So it'll be anyone who has selected that I'm interested in recording cameos. So I'll copy that, and then I'll head back over to our dashboard page. I'll go into our repeating group, and just within that constraint, I'm going to need to backspace the option to add in dynamic data, and then I'll paste in that option. And the reason I'm pasting that in is because it's a static choice, which means that the value needs to equal the exact same value as the initial dropdown, including any case-sensitive characters. And now that this repeating group will display a list of all our celebrities, I'll once again just go in and update the layout style of this. So I'll select that this should only be 2 rows. I'll update this to be extended vertical scrolling. And once again, I will go in and start to populate what content will be displayed within our repeating group. So I'll add in a small image here, and this will need to display the profile photos of the celebrities across our platform. So this will be the current user's photo. And then next to this, I'll add in a text element. And this text element will display the current cell's user's name. And of course, I'll just go and update that to be a H2 style font. And after we've displayed a list of all the celebrities, we're ready to create a feature that allows us to toggle on who are the featured celebrities on our platform and who shouldn't be featured within our main category on the homepage. And the best way to do this is by using a bubble plugin. So we'll head over to our plugins tab, select to add a new plugin. We will search for the term toggle, and then we'll select the better toggle plugin here, which is free. Then back in our design tab, you'll see that there is an option under our input forms to add in a better toggle element. So I'll go ahead and add that into our repeating group. And then we'll just need to go ahead and configure this toggle. So we'll need to update the default value of this to be no, because we don't want every celebrity to be featured immediately. We only want it to turn to yes when this toggle is selected. Then what we'll do is go ahead and create a workflow that changes the value of this celebrity's featured status when this toggle is clicked. So we'll go over into our workflow tab. We'll select to create a new event, and we'll go down to our element actions, and we'll choose when the better toggle value is changed. Within this workflow, we're going to want to go to our data tab, and we'll be making changes to a thing. The thing we'll want to change is the current cell's user. So this is the celebrity that the toggle currently sits within. And the field that we'll want to change within this data type is the featured status. And then within this, we'll be updating the featured status to be yes. Now we'll also need to go and add a condition to this workflow that only allows this particular workflow to trigger when the featured status is currently no. Because if it is yes, it'll just be making an unnecessary change to our database. So we'll go back into the workflow trigger and add in a condition here that identifies when the current cell's user, their featured status, is currently set to no. Then we'll need to go ahead and create another workflow that identifies when a celebrity's feature status is currently yes, and then we'll want it to switch to no. So we'll go and select to add a new event. Again, go down to our elements option and select from the better toggle value when it's changed. And the condition we'll be adding to this is to only trigger when the current cell celebrities featured status is yes. And then within this, the action we'll want to take is in our data tab, and we'll be selecting to make changes to a thing. And the thing we'll want to change is, of course, the current cell's user, so the celebrity. We'll want to update their featured status to no. Now this will give us the option to toggle both between the yes and no option and make changes to our database accordingly. The final thing we'll need to do though is head back over to our design tab, and then we'll need to add some conditions to the actual toggle element to respond to the value that's stored within our database. So we'll go over to the conditions tab, and we'll just need to remember that the default value of this is set to no. So within our condition tab, we'll define a new condition, and we'll start by identifying when the current cell's user's featured status is yes. We'll want the value of this toggle to also be yes. And then we'll add in one last condition that will identify when the current cell's user's featured status is no, we'll want the value of this toggle to also be no. The last thing I'm going to do to this page is just reduce the size of this repeating group. And that is all of the features I'm going to want to include within my admin dashboard today. Let's go ahead and preview what this looks like within our development environment. So over on our dashboard page, you can see that I've gone ahead and just added in a category, a couple of celebrities across our platform. But what I want to do is just go ahead and create a new category. I'll call this one Disney. I'll also go ahead and upload an image for this category. And then I'll select to actually create the category. And now you'll see that it has been created and displayed within my repeating group. If I was to choose to delete that, I could select the trash can icon, and it would then delete that category. The other thing I'd recommend doing is you can see on this page that after I've created a category, the input fields still have a value stored within them. We can change the user experience of that by just heading back into our editor here, and then just adding in an additional step to our workflow where we select to create a category. After a category has been created, we can just head down to our element actions option and choose to reset the inputs on our page. Now if I head back over into the actual dashboard itself, I'll refresh the page. And when I go to create this category again, I'll add a title and an image. I'll click the button to create that. You'll see that not only has it created the category, but it has reset the input fields on our page. And then below our categories, you can also see that we've got a list of all these celebrities displaying on our platform, and we can go ahead and toggle on and off their featured status across the app. And just like that, we've finished the feature to build our admin dashboard, which includes the ability to create categories, delete categories, and also toggle on and off the featured celebrity status. Once our admin dashboard is complete, we can finally move on to one of the first core features of our build, and that is the process of creating our homepage. Now the homepage will be used to display a list of featured celebrities and featured categories. So let's just jump right ahead into our bubble editor and we can begin the process of building this page. Now I'll be going to our homepage that we previously created, and as you can remember, our page is simply just blank at the moment. I've just updated the background color and the size constraints of it. What I will go ahead and do is start again by always adding in a text element to be used as a heading, and I'm just going to leave a bit of space up here because later on throughout this series I will be explaining how we can build a search function to search for specific celebrities. But what we're going to do first is update this title to say featured celebrities, or even just featured, because I guess most users are already under the impression that they are searching for celebrities. So I'll update this to a H2 font again. And then below this, I'm going to add a repeating group. I'll make this pretty much the size of the full page. I'll move that heading over so it's in line with that repeating group. And this repeating group is going to need to display a list of users, more specifically a list of users who are celebrities and users who have also been featured. So we'll go ahead and update the type of content here to be a user. And then within our data source, we'll perform a search, and we'll of course be searching for all of the users. But we don't want to be displaying every user across the platform, because remember, let's say half of our users, or most of our users in this case, will be regular users who are requesting cameos, not users who are celebrities who are recording the cameos. So we'll add in some new constraints, and the first one we'll add is that we want to only display the users who are listed as celebrities. So again, we'll be opting to select from the profile type, and we'll only want to display users where their profile type equals the value of the dropdown on our registration page. So once again, I'm going to quickly zip over to the registration page, select from our dropdown option on the account type, and I'm going to copy across the value that says that they're interested in recording cameos. So pretty much when someone is a celebrity. So I'll quickly jump back over to my home page then. And then I'll jump back into the data source. I'll need to backspace the option where it's allowing me to add in dynamic data, because in this case I'm inserting a static choice. So now it'll only show celebrities pretty much on our platform that have listed their profile is interested in recording cameos. The other constraint we'll need to add is the option to only display the celebrities who have been featured, which of course can be toggled on and off in our admin dashboard. What we can then do is select from the featured option, and when this option equals yes, they will also be displayed. So now you can see once again that we're only searching for celebrities that meet these two requirements. Once we've configured the data source of our repeating group, we can go and update the style of this element. And what we'll first do is go out to the layout style option, and we will select to display it as horizontal scrolling. And then within this, we'll update the number of columns to be 2. And you can now see that the repeating group displays horizontally, so users will be able to scroll continuously across. Then within the repeating group, we'll go ahead and add in some dynamic data, and the first one will be an image element. And this image itself will want to display the profile photo of a celebrity. So I'll insert dynamic data, and I'll opt to display the current cells users profile photo. I'll then just format that there. I'll add a bit more space below. And then the next thing I'll add is a text element. And this text element will display the name of the celebrity, so the current cells user's name. I'll move this across just so it's in line with the profile photo. And then finally, we'll want to display the actual price that a celebrity charges per cameo. So I'll insert some more text. And then before I add in my dynamic data, I'm going to need to backspace this dynamic option and add in a dollar figure. And then I'll insert the dynamic content, which is the current sales users price. And then I'll go ahead and update the style of this. So I'll want this to be relatively large. I'll make it a section heading. I'll move that across, and because this is on top of our image element, it will in fact display over the celebrity's image. I'll then also just quickly go and update the style of the text here. I might keep it relatively small, but I'll just make it a little bit darker, so I'll make it a H3. Below this, you'll also notice on Cameo's homepage that not only do they display a list of featured celebrities, but they also display a list of featured categories. And the process for displaying these is much the same as what we've just created for our featured celebrity option here. So I'll go ahead and just copy in the heading that we've added. I'll make sure there's a bit of space between the two. And I'll update this text to say categories. And then once again, I'll be adding in another repeating group element. I'll update this style to be horizontal scrolling, and I'll add in 2 columns, and then I will go ahead and configure the type of content, and of course we'll be wanting to display a list of categories here, and this will be quite easy. We can do a search for all of the categories within our platform. And then we'll go ahead and add in the dynamic content, which once again will be a large image. I'll just see where that sits within this. I'll make it a little bit bigger there. And I'll update the dynamic content, which of course will be the current sales categories featured image. And I'll just move that up a bit so there's not too much excess space. And I'll close that. Perfect. On top of this featured image, I'm going to need to add in some text, which will be the name of the category. So I'll insert dynamic data, which is the current sales categories, title, and then once again, I'll be updating this to be a section heading, and this will display over the image. And I know it looks quite messy now, but later on you'll see that it looks quite nice in the end user experience. While we're on our homepage creating the list of categories, one thing I will do is also go ahead and create a dedicated page for our categories. And what I mean by that is that if a user clicks through a particular category that they like, so it might be that they want to see celebrities from The Office or from Disney, we'll need to create a landing page that displays a list of all those celebrities that are within that category. So we'll go ahead and add a new page to our product, and we'll call this page Category. Now on this page, the first thing I'm going to want to do is update the type of content to be a category, because we'll be displaying all the users, or celebrities in this case, that fit within this category. So I'll then go ahead and reduce the size of my screen again to look roughly like a mobile. As always, I'll update the background color as well to a light gray. And then at the top of the screen, I'm going to add in some dynamic text, which will be the current page category, so the page that someone has clicked through to, its title. And this will be a H2 again. And then I'll center this horizontally, move that down a bit. Now on this category page, if you're using Cameo, you'll notice that they keep these pages quite simple. So I'm just going to add in a repeating group and display just a simple list of all the celebrities who fit within this category. So I'll go ahead and add in a repeating group there. And I'll update the type of content of this repeating group to be users, of course, because we're displaying celebrities. And then I'll update the data source to do a search for all our celebrities. So I'll be again searching for users. I'll then need to add two constraints again. So the first will be the constraint where the profile type equals the option in our drop-down menu. So once again, I'm going to head over to the registration page. I'll grab the value from our drop-down option here, and by all means you can keep this on file in your notes or something like that as well if you want a quick access to it. I'll then go back over to our category page, and I'll add that in as a constraint. So once again, I'll be removing the option to add in dynamic content here. I'll add in a static option, so when the user's profile type is listed as a celebrity. And then I only want to search for celebrities whose category contains, so the list of categories that they have selected from, if it matches the current page category that the user is sitting on. Now that is all we need to do to configure our repeating group, but what I will go and do is update the styling again. So I'll update the number of rows to 2, but I'll also be updating the number of columns to 2. And then I'll update the layout style to be extended vertical scrolling. So that way it will continually expand or reduce based on the number of celebrities within this. Once again, I'll go and add in some dynamic data into these repeating groups, and I'll start off with an image element. And this image will of course be the celebrity's profile photo. So it'll be the current sales users, photo. I'll just move that over and reduce the size of that repeating group so it's nice and compact. And then below this I'll be adding their name, so the current sales users name. I'll make sure that's in line. I'll update the styling of their name to be the H3 dark text. And then finally I'll be adding in the price of their cameos again. So I'll be backspacing the option here to insert dynamic content. I'll add in the $sign beforehand, and then I will include the current sales users price, and I'll be updating this to be a section heading. I'll just reformat that quickly, move that down a bit. And that is all we'll need to do for our category page. I might also just center that horizontally again because I've reduced the size of it. But the final thing we'll need to do is create a way to send data through to this category page to identify which celebrities we want to actually show on this page. So if we head back over into our home page, we'll create two new workflows, and the first one we'll do is we'll create a workflow when the featured image of the category is selected. So we'll go ahead and select to create that workflow, and within this workflow what we're going to want to do is choose a navigation event. We'll select to go to a page, And the page, of course, will be the category page that we've just created and edited. And then within this, you'll see that we have the option to send data along with it. Now, when you send data to a page, it allows you to display that data. So the data we'll be sending is the current cells category that we're clicking on. Then we'll go back into our design tab and we'll create the exact same workflow for our featured users. Only this time we'll be sending them to the user profile page, which we haven't created at this point. So what I'll do is select to add a new page. I'm just going to call this page profile. I'll select create. And then I'm not going to do anything on this page yet, except update the type of content to be a user. Now in Bubble, if you're sending data between pages, you need to have a content type on this page because it will identify what type of data you want to send through to the page. So now that I've created that profile page, I can head back over to our home page and I can go ahead and create the workflow when the profile image of a celebrity in our featured category is selected. So I will choose to create a new workflow. Within this workflow, I will be selecting a navigation event and I'll choose the go to page event. And then the destination page will be our profile page. And the data I'll be sending with it is the current cells user, so the current celebrity that someone is clicking on. After creating the redirect to a user's profile from our featured image, we can also then do the same from our category page quickly. So we'll head over to the category page that we've created, and where the user profiles sit, we'll go ahead and click on the profile images for these celebrities, and then we'll select to create a new workflow here. And we'll want to redirect these to the profile page we've also just created. So we'll select a navigation event, go to page, and the destination page will be the profile page, and we'll be sending the current cells user. So now you'll just see that once we navigate between all the different pages, these all link up quite nicely. So now that we've created this, let's go over and preview what this looks like within our application. Now over on our homepage, we can see how this looks, and I've taken the time to add in a few other celebrities to our platform. But essentially you'll be able to see that their profile photos are there, the names are there, the price of their cameos are also listed, and you can scroll horizontally across. Same with our categories, although we only have 2 categories at the moment. And once a category is clicked, it will send us through to the category page that it has. So I'll select the office in this case, and that'll redirect us over. And you'll see that it's sent through the data of the category, so it recognizes the name of the category is the office, and it currently has 1 celebrity who has been listed in it, Steve Carell, as that's all I've added, but it would then go on to display an entire list of all the celebrities that match this category. From here, you could also click through to Steve's profile, and that will redirect you right through. It sent us through to the profile page, but again, I have no content on that page right now, but it's sending through a unique ID which belongs to Steve's profile. And there we have it. That is how we can begin to easily create the start of our home page. So we can tick off that we've created a menu to display a list of featured celebrities. We've also added in the category pages and also the categories that can be displayed on our home page. And finally, we've been able to send data through to pages. So that could be to a featured celebrity's profile or through to our category page itself. And that is all I have time for in this tutorial today. If you wanted to check out the rest of the course, I'd recommend clicking the link in the description below and purchasing the full course. Throughout this, I'll be walking you through the step-by-step instructions to complete the rest of our build. You can also get access to a suite of Bubble tutorials where you'll learn how to rebuild other popular products. If you'd like to also get started learning how to build some other popular products, I'll include some suggested videos in a moment that you can also check out. Thanks again for tuning in, and be sure to hit that subscribe button if you'd like to see any more helpful tutorials like this to help you on your Bubble journey.